Incoming right there.
Hey guys, welcome back to Tactical Rifleman. We did a video a couple months ago. It was called Military Terms, Sayings, and Acronyms. And it's, you know the deal. You watch the movies, you watch TV and stuff. They're always using military jargon. Well, what do those words and phrases actually mean? Like MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, Special Observation Group, right? Okay, so that's kind of a weird way of saying all the dark side stuff that happened in Vietnam, all the classified stuff, right? So military acronyms are good. Sometimes they tell you what they actually are. Some of them are just cool slang. But that video we did, it got a lot of feedback from you guys. And we've decided we're going to do a part 2 to that because there's still a lot of great terms. But before we do that, we're going to give a shout out to this week's sponsor. Hey guys, this week's video is brought to you by ACRE Gold. You don't break the bank. You start buying gold at just $50 a month and then you watch your gold grow. ACRE Gold will keep you up to date as your gold stash continues to make progress. Once your gold stash reaches the price of a 2.5 gram ACRE Gold bar, they will discreetly ship you your gold, safe, easy, and secure. This is the perfect size for stashing inside those EDC belts, stuff like that. I want to thank them for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, this week on Tactical Rifleman, we are going to do a part 2 in our series, Military Terms, Sayings, and Acronyms. What I mean by that is, let's say a 40 Mike. That is a military term, basically slang for a 40 millimeter grenade launcher, an M203. You know, that underbarrel 40 millimeter grenade launcher. You put it in the tube. You guys have seen them shot out of the M79s, whatever, right? So anyways, last time we did this, we got a lot of great feedback from you guys requesting certain ones you wanted to know the answers to, but people actually commented I didn't have any starting with A. So I hunted around and found a couple for you that start with A. First one's got a lot of A's. It's actually called AAA. Or sometimes you'll hear it called AAA, and that stands for Anti-Aircraft Artillery. Okay, right? That's those guns that shoot down airplanes. Now, understand, if you're looking at the map, you're getting ready to go hit that target, and you see on the map is 3 small A's in a row, you understand that little term gets a lot more exciting for you. It's like, ooh, this is not a big thing, not a good thing for us. The air crews are very, very alert to these things. So whether it's guns, anti-aircraft artillery, or SAMs, surface-to-air missiles, anything like that, the helicopter crews really lose their minds about it. Like Task Force 160, for example, a lot of times if they can't get fast movers to come in and take them out ahead of time, they fly what's called a DAP, A-D-A-P, Designated Armed Platform. In other words, a Black Hawk that's got that 30 millimeter chain gun on it, rocket pods and miniguns, and you'll hear them running their drills right over here on Fort Campbell at the aerial gunnery range all night long. They'll come in, they pop up, they come in, they open up with the miniguns, you hear that brrr, and then you hear a couple rounds go off, dong, 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 from that 30 millimeter chain gun, and then right at the end, before they peel off, they'll launch 2 of those 2.75 inch rockets. Brrr, dun, 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 boom, boom. And they do it all night long. Very, very cool, because you don't want to come in on final, land on the X, and hit that target knowing that, hey, they've got Dishkas and 12.7s and 23 millimeter cannons all around the target area. That ends in a very, very bad day for you. So our first one, AAA. What about AAR? We're down to 2 A's now. AAR stands for End of Action or After Action Report. After Action Report, you come back in after you're done doing that mission, or that, it doesn't matter if it's a training mission or a combat mission. As soon as you get back inside the wire, you always sit everybody down and you review, all right, what went right, what went wrong. And then what we call the day walkers, the intel guys, they'll always have a big list of questions for you. You know, did you see anything out there, blah, 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 blah. Doing a very thorough AAR, after action review, not just blowing it off, but doing it properly. You understand, that's what separates a lot of good special ops units from just regular military units, because we have to be our own worst critic. This is how we get better, is by having those observer controllers cut us to ribbons. You guys did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this, you did this. They show us every little mistake we made. And you gotta have thick skins, but that's how you get better, is by doing a good AAR. All right, that stuff's important. It really is, really is. Another one dear to my heart, because I was on a Halo team, is what we call AGL, which stands for above ground level, which is the flip side of that, which is above sea level. Now, those of you looking back, you know, you think the invasion of Panama, the Rangers came in, a lot of those 141 aircraft came in, and they were 600 feet above sea level. Remember Panama, right? Grenada also, those areas are not very high above sea level, but they are above sea level. So the jump altitude was set for 600 feet, which is way too low. You don't even have time to pull your reserve parachute. Well, the planes came in, those air crews were scared to death. They never popped up to 600 feet above ground level. They stayed that same altitude. So a lot of times when those Rangers jumped, they were actually jumping well below that safe altitude part of it. Now, where it comes to play for most of the military is they will brief it that, okay, what altitude are the helicopters going to be flying at? And it's given an AGL, above ground level. So basically anything under 200 feet is considered nap of the earth, nap near as possible. You understand that there's lots of acronyms that the military uses. If they're doing nap of the earth, that airplane, that C-130, that helicopter, it is passing between the hills. It is passing just over power lines, sometimes under power lines. And it makes for a really exciting ride. It also has to do with why there's a lot of accidents in training. But understand, we have to push ourselves in training to make combat easy. Unfortunately, a lot of accidents do happen in training. And an example that I actually want to forget about was there was a Halo team. And you understand, when I say Halo, those are our military skydivers. We call it military freefall, MFF. They're doing a Halo jump, high altitude, low opening. We actually covered that in that last acronym video. But they jumped out. They knew they were going to jump out at such and such altitude, right? Let's say they get out at 27,000 feet above ground level. And then they're going to start opening their parachutes 4,000 feet above ground level, all right? You understand that gives you 4,000 feet to open your parachute. Unfortunately, this one Halo team, and I'm not going to say names or nothing, what group it was, the altitude where they got on the airplanes, where that airbase was a lot lower. It was closer to sea level than where they were jumping in the mountains. So how do you adjust for that on your altimeter? Well, the jump master, I was one of the jump masters, so this mistake is very dear to my heart. I wasn't on that jump, but you understand this is part of the math that a jump master has to do. You take the altitude of where you're getting on the airplane, you take the altitude of where you're going to be parachuting, and you have got to make sure your math is correct. Unfortunately, so in other words, if there's a 4,000 foot difference or 6,000 foot difference, think about jumping into the mountains in the Rockies, right? 9,000 foot difference from where you got on the airplane. You've got to make sure that your math is correct when adjusting those altimeters. Unfortunately, this jump master and the jump master that double checked his math, they did the math in the opposite direction. So not only were they like 7,000 feet off, they were 14,000 feet off. So these guys were under free fall. They jumped out of the airplane, they're falling, and they still think they had plenty of sky to fall through. And unfortunately, they found these guys about 13 inches down in the ground. And it sucks, but it comes down to the jump masters did not calculate AGL properly. That sucks, don't it? I mean, it does. That sucks, stuff like that happening. Last video, we covered one that was called Molly. That is that attachment system that everybody has on their body armor, their gun belts and everything now, MOLLE, to attach your pouches, your holsters, everything to our modern body armor. Well, before we had Molly, back in the day, we had what was called Alice, ALICE, Alice. And so you had your Alice pack, your Alice rucksack was actually called the Alice pack. We called it that, dating all the way back to like Vietnam. And, you know, I got in the military, late 80s, and all through the 90s, it was called the Alice pack, Alice pack. Well, what did Alice actually stand for? Anybody know? Alice, ALICE, stands for All-Purpose Lightweight Individual Carrying Equipment. That's a pretty long word for this is just the gear that the Army's using right now, right? All right, I got just a couple more A's, but before we do, you guys, because you guys know I'm long-winded, YouTube's gonna cut me mid-sentence if I don't give them a spot to break for a commercial. So we're gonna pause right here. I'm gonna let YouTube hit you right in the face with a commercial. I'll see you back in a minute. All right, hey guys, welcome back. I got another A for you. This one's called AO. AO, what does AO stand for? It stands for Area of Operation. So for example, when my unit was in Iraq, the A teams get assigned different AOs, different areas of operation. For example, in 2004, my A team got assigned the city of Fallujah out in Anbar province out west. Now, when we start saying AO, I understand it's different for different size units. For example, my A team was responsible for the city of Fallujah. There was another A team, was actually a B team that was assigned up in Ramadi, other A teams in Najaf and Baghdad, all over the place. But we don't technically own the battle space being the part of that country that we're working in. The battle space is actually owned by a conventional military unit. In our case, all of Anbar province was owned by the Marines at the time. So instead of me working with Army units, whenever I took my team out in my AO, my area of operation in Fallujah, we would be going out doing patrols with Marines. And I'm a big fan of Marines. Every time my A team got into gunfights with Marines wrapped around us, I did not have to write my guys a single Purple Heart, not one time. All right. Last one for A's. You'll hear AW or ASW. They're kind of interchangeable. What they stand for is asymmetric warfare. What is asymmetric warfare? A lot of my older guys back in the your 70s, 80s, my Vietnam vets, my Korean War vets, this is a term they didn't deal with back then. This kind of a newer term. It's only about 20 or 30 years old. It's called asymmetric warfare. It is a spin-off of unconventional warfare, but it's more, we're the good guys and we are fighting an unconventional enemy. What I mean by that is conventional warfare, you've got basically two even teams. You got the good guys, you got the bad guys. They both have artillery, they both have radios, they both have drones, they both have an air force, they've got tanks, they've got... That's not what we were fighting in the global war on terror. What we were fighting was a very asymmetric battlefield. In other words, we're fighting basically cavemen. What I mean by that, and again, they weren't cavemen. You got to understand, in Iraq, for example, a lot of those troops that we were fighting, those guerrillas, right, because the entire Iraqi military had been disbanded after, right at the beginning of the war, they all went underground to continue to fight as partisans against the U.S. and our coalition forces. Now, understand they couldn't fight us what we would call a fair fight. Stand out there with their gun, we got our gun, because you understand, we always stack the deck in our favor. All right, so what they would do is they would fight unfair, right? Or they would fight asymmetrically. Our conventional convoys would be moving and they would bury a roadside bomb or a bomb under the road. That bomb would blow up. We would then react to that by equipping all the units with mine-resistant vehicles, big, thick armor on them. They would then respond to that by using roadside bombs that had explosively formed projectiles, big copper plates that would shoot. It could easily penetrate the side of those vehicles. Now, to set them off, right, they'd run the wires back. So we would respond to, hey, we've got to figure out where these guys are. And we would follow the wires back, arrest the whole family, interrogate them, find out who did it. They, in turn, would respond by using radio detonated bombs. In other words, they could key that radio, it would go off. We would respond to that by jamming all the frequencies, or actually going through with lots of RF energy, and that in turn would send off all the bombs. They would respond to that by using cell phones, right? We would get close, they would use a cell phone, they'd call the cell phone that was hooked to their roadside bomb, and it would set off the EFP to feed our vehicles. We would in turn respond to that by having jammers on the vehicles that would jam the cell phones. They in turn would respond to that by adding, the cell phones would turn on, not to detonate the bomb, but they would turn on a garage door laser going across the road. So in other words, once that last taxi drove by, before the jammers could get there, they would arm that garage door laser, and then when the front of that military vehicle hit that garage door laser, it would send the signal. Didn't matter that we were jamming all the airwaves, in turn it would go off. We, in turn, would respond by running these basically a tomahawk off the front of the vehicle, dragging a chain on the ground, and that would break the garage door laser a little bit earlier. And then they would change tactics, and we would change tactics. And that going back and forth, that is what we mean when we say asymmetric warfare. You adjusting your tactics, techniques, and procedures to what the enemy's doing, and then them doing the same thing to you, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It gets frustrating, but also gets very creative. You've got guys doing some very creative things on the battlefield, and that is awesome. That's what makes combat exciting, right? So AW or ASW, asymmetric warfare. Right? How about some fun ones? I'm not about Americans dying and stuff. How about, here's a term for you, beef and shrapnel. Beef and shrapnel. What they're talking about, and all my old World War II and Korean War vets, and a lot of my Vietnam War vets too, they're going, oh, beef and shrapnel. That was that beef C ration. It had so much cruddy chunks of bone and everything in it that they called it beef and shrapnel. It was slang for that type of C ration. All right, there's another one dealing with C ration called the John Wayne bars. And if you opened up that little dessert can and they were chocolate covered cookies that were so hard, they would literally break your teeth. You basically had to be John Wayne to bite through one of those things. A little bit of term there. John Wayne bars. I got one more B for you. All right. Bohica. This is actually one that's recommended by a lot of the people in the comment section on the last video. Bohica. What does Bohica stand for? Guys, honest, it basically stands for bend over, here it comes again. All right? Funny stuff. All right, hey guys, our last video that we did, military terms, acronyms, and everything, I tried to share little stories, vignettes, and one of them I was talking about doing a close target recce, which is basically one American, a couple Booger Eaters going and riding in the Solder City. And some of you asked, what does the phrase Booger Eater mean? All right, when we say Booger Eaters, you understand for a Green Beret, our job is to work with the indigenous personnel, the military guys from the host nation that we're working with. So Booger Eaters is an affectionate term to say indigenous forces. All right, so why don't we use the term indigenous forces or host nation personnel? It's because it's quicker to just say Booger Eaters, and because they smell like feet, and because they eat. You get the point. All right, you get the point. I got another one that's called, another slang. It's called Cutaway. And where the phrase comes from is, let's say you're on that military free fall, you go to jump and you go to deploy that parachute, your parachute does not open, right? Or you get a cigarette roll, or it gets wrapped around your foot, whatever, while you're falling. You do what's called a cutaway. You've got a cutaway pillow and a reserve ripcord grip. So first thing you do is you cut away your parachute, you grab the red cutaway pillow, and then you pull the ripcord to deploy your reserve parachute. So when somebody says cutaway, that's technically where it comes from, all right? But understand that's not really where it gets used a lot. Where it gets used a lot is, when somebody's doing something and all your buddies are, you're ready to go, but this one guy is still busy doing something. It's like, hey man, it's time to cut away. It gets used a lot in the bar. Let's say we're getting ready to bar hop from one bar to another. There'll be guys off to the side who might come up and say, hey man, cut away. We're getting ready to go. Or they'll be behind the girl standing so you could see them, and they'll go like this. They're basically saying, cut away. It's time to go. It's time to go. There are other hand and arm signals for it. For example, if your buddy gives you that signal and you're sitting there talking whatever, you take your beer bottle. Now remember, you got that girl right there that you're talking to. If you want your buddy to leave, so if you're there talking to the girl and I'm standing behind you, I'll point at the bottom of my beer. I'm telling you, hey man, quit talking to this bimbo. It's time to go, right? Or if I want you to slow down, hey, we're going to stay here a little bit longer, I'll just point to the top of my beer bottle. All right, so hey, drag it out. We're staying here longer. Or hey, so in other words, if I point to the bottom of the bottle, that basically means, hey man, cut away. We got to get out of here. Johnny Law's coming, fight starting, whatever it is. So the term is cut away, but there are other ways to say it, other hand and arm signals. Another phrase, we're getting into D's now, is dust off, right? Dust off is basically another term for a medical helicopter. We use medevac, all right? That would be an actual dedicated medevac helicopter, or a CAS evac, C-A-S-E-V-A-C. CAS evac is any helicopter that you're bringing in to evacuate casualties. A medevac bird actually has medical equipment and personnel on it. But either way, if they say, hey, we're calling dust off, that's usually the call sign that they'll be using over the radio. But dust off can be used in training at any military base. And it's a term you really don't want to hear come over the radio, because it means, hey, they're getting ready to give a 9-line medevac request, and it means that American's been hurt. Really don't like hearing that one at all. FNG, that stands for fucking new guy. I know we can't say that on the internet, so they have to bleep that out. But you understand, especially in a combat zone, you get that new guy that shows up. A lot of times you don't even want to know his name. You just know that, look, he doesn't know your standard operating procedures. He just doesn't. And we really need to get this guy up to speed real quick. You don't want to be the FNG. You really don't. Another one they talked about a lot, and somebody brought it up in the comment section, GWOT, G-W-O-T. That stands for Global War on Terror. All right, that's, you guys would hear it on the news all the time, especially if military guys are being interviewed, CNN, Fox News, whatever. A lot of times they would use the term GWOT. All right, I got one here that's going to catch up a lot of you guys. HMMWV, HMMWV. What does that stand for? High Mobility Multi-Purpose Wheeled Vehicle, Humvee. Now that's not how all you guys spell Humvee. It's not how GMC spells Humvee. The H2, the H3, that's not how civilians spell Humvee. But when they first came out with the Humvee for the military, it was originally going to be called a Hummer, believe it or not. And The military did not like that term because they thought it sounded too much like bummer. And serious as a heart attack. So they actually changed the name, the nomenclature for it, and it is called a high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle. Funny stuff. There you go, right there. All right, next one is IED. A lot of you guys understand that one, right? Improvised explosive device. But yeah, the military, they like to be a little more specific. So at first it was just a IED, a improvised explosive device. And then it became a VBIED, a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. And then it became a SVBIED, which was a suicide vehicle-borne vehicle IED. Suicide vehicle IED. And then it became a SVIED, was a suicide vest IED. SVBIED, suicide vehicle-borne IED, which, right, what's the difference between vehicle-borne and suicide vehicle-borne? Well, one is the vehicle is parked and blown up remotely. The other one is there's actually a poor monkey driving it. He's usually got his hands duct taped to the steering wheel. Funny stuff, right? And then, of course, you get into EFP IED, which stands for Explosively Formed Projectile IED. Matter of fact, I got that's what this is right here, guys. All a EFP IED is an explosively formed projectile. It's kind of like a shaped charge. This is a copper disc. This one's actually made in Iran. I had the Navy EOD guys clean all the explosive residue off of it. It's completely inert, can't hurt nothing. It's just a souvenir. But this would have a couple inches of explosive on the back. And when they would remote detonate it, they would turn this copper disc inside out into a jet of basically molten plasma. And unfortunately, this little copper disc goes right through all of our up-armored Humvees. And it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't kill the Americans inside, but it depending if it's aimed properly, it'll take both their legs off. It's just, again, back to asymmetric warfare. But yeah, IEDs, VBIEDs, SVIEDs, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they run together, guys. They really do. They run together. Here's another funny one for you. A JAFO. Somebody says, come on, JAFO, get on the truck. That stands at JAFO, which just stands for just another frickin' observer. All right, again, another frickin' observer. If they say, JAFO, get on the truck, a lot of times what it is new commanders will show up somewhere, or observers. We've had the press, reporters come along. Matter of fact, Oliver North, back when he was working for 60 Minutes, actually did a ride along with Task Force Raptor. I'm looking at his 60 Minutes coin over there on the shelf. But whether you're an officer riding along, an official, or just an observer coming along so that you can go outside the wire on an operation, you're looking at, well, who's riding on the vehicles tonight? Who's riding on the helicopter? You got your usual assault cell you're traveling with, and you're like, hey, who's this schmuck? It's just another JAFO. That's all it is. They JAFO, get on the bird. Just another frickin' observer. JAFO. Nothing bad by that. It's not meant to be bad. All right, it's meant to be bad. It is. It's meant to be bad. MSR. MSR stands for Military Supply Route. Now, our military supply road. Now, we've had routes. So Route Michigan, RT Idaho, Recon Team, right? That's MACV-SOG guys. But in Iraq, we had a Route Idaho, all right? But we also had, later on, when that road got expanded to be one of the main routes for all the convoys to travel on, you had MSR Michigan, you had MSR Tampa. These were, I'm trying to remember the names of the big highways, and not all major roads are military supply roads, but if you see it marked on the map, MSR, that is a road that gets traveled a lot. And we've made it all the way up to L's already. How about leg or straight leg? A leg or a straight leg, that is a derogatory term, usually said by guys that were airborne. If they say that a guy, he's a leg or he's a dirty, nasty leg, they're talking about somebody in an airborne unit that hasn't been to airborne school. Now, understand, guys, I was in a special forces unit for most of my career, and it is airborne. Like I said, I was on a Halo team also. My whole life, I didn't call anybody a straight leg, dirty, nasty leg, anything. Because to me, being the airborne part of that wasn't really that, it just wasn't that important to me. But also, remember, I was in the 101st Airborne for Desert Storm, and 101st Airborne isn't airborne. They're not the air assault. They've got helicopters. They've got a lot of helicopters. But, you riding around or being on Fort Bragg with your 101st Screaming Eagle patch on, it might say airborne, but the guys are from the 82nd would call you a dirty, nasty leg. So when I was airborne as a Green Beret, I didn't like being called that. I just didn't call anybody a dirty, nasty leg. Just didn't do it. Here's another L for you, LERP. Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol, all right? Okay, right? A LERP, not that bad. So my old recon platoon for the 101st, I was at battalion level recon, but up at the division level, they had what was called LERPs, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols, or LRSD, Long Range Reconnaissance Detachment. They would do those deep behind enemy lines, right? Let's get into the M's. I got a bunch of them. I really do. All right. Tell you what, before we do M's, because I do got a bunch of them, let's let YouTube give you another commercial. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. Here's an M for you. MOS, Mike Oscar Sierra. That stands for Military Occupational Specialty. So in other words, my MOS when I first went in the Army was an 11 Bravo, 11B. That's basically an 11 series is infantry. And then if you had a B, you were just a regular infantryman. If you had a C, a Charlie, an 11 Charlie, you're a mortarman. 11 Hotel meant you were a tow missile guy. But I was started off as 11 Bravo. When I first got to Special Forces, I became a 18 series. 18 is the numerical designator for Special Forces, the Green Berets. And I started off as an 18 Delta, 18D. That meant that I started off as a Special Forces medic. I then went on to be an 18 Zulu Special Forces team sergeant. Now, in the military occupational specialties, you can get deeper into that. You can get a papa for being airborne. I want to say it's like a Whiskey 8 means you're Halo qualified. Whiskey 4 means you're sniper qualified. There's language that basically you get this big long designation that basically says who you are, but it really doesn't. Nobody really cares, guys. Just, hey, I'm an 11 Bravo. Or, hey, I'm an 18 Bravo. I'm a Special Forces weapons guy. Or I'm an 18 Charlie. I'm a Special Forces engineer. 18 Echo, Special Forces commo guy. That's the first three digits, really all that matters. The other branches, they have the same thing, but they're different. So I don't really know what they are in the other branches. So not really going to go down that. Not going to go down that road. Another M that you hear it a bunch in the military. I don't know, probably other branches. If they say someone is a Mustang. All right, so that if you say someone's a Mustang, well, that means he's a wild person, right? No, not really. If a guy's a Mustang in the Army, anyways, that's a term that refers to a officer, usually like a lieutenant or a captain, that was promoted from the enlisted rank. So in other words, he came in the military, enlisted, and sergeant, private, whatever, and then finished his college, and then went OCS. And came back in as a lieutenant, maybe captain, something like that. So you understand, for us being sergeants, a lot of times we use that respectfully. If we say, hey, he's a Mustang, that means he used to be one of us. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of officers, you get your majors, your colonels, and stuff like that. You know, a lot of them are ring knockers. You know, they went to West Point. They've got their little, I hate to say it, they've got their little officer world that they live in. And then you get this new, usually an older guy, but he's younger ranking. He, you know, he's in his 30s, but he's only a lieutenant. You know, young captain, while he's a Mustang. A lot of times the officers, they kind of blackball him, which is unfortunate. They should be welcoming him with open arms because he is bringing a lot of experience that these officers just aren't getting in their initial schools. They're trained, they're not getting a lot of stuff in the War College. They're really not. That's enough M's. Let's get out of there. Let's go to N's, Novembers. NBC, that stands for nuclear, biological, and chemical, right? That's fair. We would have to do NBC training, practice, you know, train for a nuclear attack, a biological attack, a chemical attack. Understand, training for those, even though a lot of times in the conventional military, they train the same way. You just put your gas mask on. But the reality is you train and prepare for each of those in different ways. Biological weapons, what would a biological weapon be? Hello, COVID, right? Deliberately released from a lab. That is a biological weapon. A chemical weapon, you're looking at, an easy one would be pepper spray, or OC spray, mace. But you can get really medieval on this stuff. Nerve agents, hydrogen cyanide, basically float a cloud across the battlefield of basically cyanide gas. And anybody that breathes it in, it kills you pretty quick, guys. It really does, unfortunately. Can the gas mask protect against it? Yep, the U.S. military has got some great gas masks, but it does eat up the filters really, really quick. Chemical weapons aren't really new. Some of the first chemical weapons were used was World War I. They would open, when the winds were right, they would open tanks of chlorine gas, big tanks, and just float clouds of chlorine gas across the battlefield and you know, burn out the eyes of the opposing military. That sounds awful rough, don't it? You know, and the reality is a lot of times in war, at the beginning of the war, you would never even fathom doing that. But by the end of the war, sometimes you got to take the kid gloves off. You really do. An example of that was the Revolutionary War, not revolution. Let's go Civil War. General Sherman said, let me go cut a swath through the South, so many hundreds of miles wide, rape, pillage, and burn everything to the ground, and I guarantee you I can break the back of the South. If he had said that at the beginning of the Civil War, he would have lost his star, right? But the reality is that's exactly what they did before the end of the Civil War. Fast forward to World War I. At the beginning of World War I, if they had said, you know, hey, let's take big tanks of chlorine gas and vent them across the battlefield to burn guys' eyes out, there's no way they would do that. Let's go to World War II. How about if at the beginning of World War II, if you had said, I want to drop tons and tons and tons of incendiary bombs on Tokyo because the city's made out of fire, and I want to create a firestorm that just sucks all the oxygen into it and just sweeps across the entire city and kills tens of thousands of civilians, women, children, and elderly. They don't stand a chance to fight against it. There's no way at the beginning of the war we would have done that, but that's exactly what we did by the end of the war. All right, so, you know, people want to bash the U.S. for using nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but the reality is every island that the Americans were getting closer and closer to mainland Japan, we kept taking higher and higher casualty rates. Not just us, but more and more the Japanese were fighting to the death. And you understand, if we had gone all the way to mainland Japan, there would have been millions and millions of dead people, Americans and Japanese. And that's why dropping a couple small nuclear bombs on a couple of cities with the threat that, hey, we've got hundreds of these bombs, you understand, it broke the back, and it was necessary. Sometimes it's necessary to take off those kid gloves. It really is. All right, I got one more N, and then we'll move on. Here's an N for you. You do it when you're parachuting. Nut to butt. N nut to B butt. What nut to butt means, let's say you're sitting on an airplane. If the jump master says, hey, sit, nut to butt, it means we've got to squeeze as many people onto this airplane as possible. First guy sits on the ground, spreads his legs, the next guy sits, and they stack people up. The phrase nut to butt is basically military slang that just means, hey, tighten it up, get as close together as possible so we can fit more people in here. Emory will talk about how many Israelis you can get in the back of a Merkava tank. And the answer is one more. You can always, it's designed to hold like 8 people, and they would put like 16 or 20 Israeli special ops guys in it. I remember them doing the same thing to me, infantry basic training in the old, we called them cattle cars, tractor trailer truck that they basically just shoved us all in nut to butt. Let's let YouTube hit you with another commercial. I'll be right back. Hey guys, here's an actual military acronym for you, not just slang. It's called OCOCA, O-C-O-K-A. It's used for terrain analysis, and basically what it stands for is observation fields of fire, covering concealment, obstacles, key terrain, and avenues of approach. OCOCA, all right? So when you would use this, let's say you're doing mission planning, when you start looking at the terrain that you have to travel through, all right, there are certain things that you want to look for, all right? OCOCA. You want to look for observation and fields of fire. Are you going to you're going to be able to have them, but also is the enemy going to be able to have them if you're the one moving through that area? If you're moving through it, is there areas that have got good covering concealment? Are there any obstacles that you're going to have to breach along the way? Not knowing that there's a wire obstacle or a minefield there, you understand that's kind of important to note ahead of time. Is there any key terrain? Because you understand key terrain a lot of times would be seized by the enemy. That's where they're going to have those listening posts, observation posts. All right, and then are there avenues of approach? Places where the enemy can bring in reinforcements quickly, lines of drift, things like that. Like a river is a line of drift. A fire break through a forest is a line of drift, right? So things like that. Now, hand in hand with that one, there's another one that's called MET-T, mission, right? Mission equipment, what equipment is available while you're planning this op, the troops available, and then the terrain that you've got to do it in, and then how much time do you have. So when you start planning out a mission, whether it was in Ranger School or whether you're out in the middle of the desert getting ready to do something, satellite imagery, all this other stuff, you still have to look at OCOCA to analyze the terrain. But if it's we got to plan this right now, at a minimum, you're going to look MET-T. Right, so you've got to take care of all that stuff. We're not just throwing on our body armor, running out there. We're not. We're just not. So, OCOCA, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, another one that's an M is Oscar Mike. You'll see it on T-shirts, right? Oscar Mike, and that basically just means on the move. We are moving, right? Oscar Mike. All right. One that you'll hear sometimes on TV, but I would hear it a lot, is outside the wire or inside the wire, right? And what that means is, wire being the edge of the base, which a lot of times is a wall now where the military is, but that just means the guy is on base or he's outside, he's off base. If he's off base, he is outside the wire, and if he's on base, and he is inside the wire. So if a guy, you hear somebody say, well, dude, I stayed inside the wire the whole time. It meant he basically flew into country, never left that base, never saw Iraq or Afghanistan because he had 20-foot tall Texas T barrier walls all the way around them. And the reality is a lot of troops never get to go outside the wire. All right, so yeah, for what it is. Another one you'll hear is pop smoke. All right, if somebody says, hey, we are popping smoke, it means we're leaving right now. You know, hey man, I'm gonna pop smoke. It means, hey, I'll see you, I'm leaving. All right, so it's a slang term. Somebody says, I'm popping smoke, or hey, we're gonna pop smoke. It just means we're leaving. But where it actually dates back to was a lot of times if you were leaving an area, let's say you're getting ready to go back inside forward friendly lines, you would pop smoke to you'd pop a certain color smoke while you were on the radio with the friendlies so that you would know, hey, these are the good guys coming in. They're not bad guys, or they're just faking it with a certain color smoke grenade. But a lot of times if you were out and you're set in the middle of the jungle, desert, wherever, and hey, we're popping smoke, we're getting out of here, you would pop smoke so that the helicopters could see your exact location and come in. So, hey man, we're getting out of here. It is slang. Popping smoke means it's slang for we are getting out of here. I'll see you later. Here's one that my old unit used a lot, and it was called a puck, P-U-C, a puck. Yeah, hey man, we got 6 pucks. What that means is that is persons under control. What I mean by that is you don't say over the radio, I've got 3 bad guys, or I've got 3 people that are unknown, I don't know what they are, or I've got 3 adult military age males, I've got 3 military age females, I've got 6 people over the age of 60, I've got 4 kids, I've got a dog, and I've got an infant. You don't have time to say all that over the radio. We're at sector secure. Everybody has been flex cuffed. Everybody is sat in our places where we control things, all right? But it just come over the radio, hey, we've got 6 pucks, all right? Persons under control. Now, there's a couple other P's that are weird that they would use. PCM. PCM stands for Population Control Measure. Population Control Measure. So that's like birth control, right? No, that's Big Army has the term PCM. That's just saying a checkpoint, all right? A PCP. Another term for that is a population control point. Again, that is a checkpoint. You may have a PCP inside of a PCM. In other words, a PCM, a big control point, like let's say a checkpoint on a road, and then the PCP would actually be the spot off to the side where they could go through the barricades and they would get searched one at a time. It is a population control point where you're allowing individual dismounted personnel to come through. They're going to get search checked, ran with metal detector, all that stuff, IDs checked, all that stuff. PCP, PCM, population control point, population control measure, both of them kind of interchangeable. They're both just meaning checkpoint. Army's got a lot of these weird ass acronyms. One you'll see a lot of guys will put in the signature blocks on their emails is RLTW or maybe ATW, and that stands for Rangers Lead the Way all the way. Okay, and I want to bash them for it, but I really can't, because my signature block, instead of saying sincerely or respectfully, my signature block says strength and honor, comma, Carl Erickson. That was the motto for 5th Special Forces Group through the whole global war on terror. General Mulholland started using it on his emails down to everybody in group, and it just kind of caught on with us. We got the name the 5th Legion, and we just started using it, strength and honor. So when Leaf LeBlanc, one of our followers, always puts in the chat room, RLTW-ATW, Rangers lead the way all the way, is basically what he's trying to say. All right, nothing hard. This is why you're here, so you learn this stuff. There's another one called RTB. So if somebody asks for a sit rep, a situation report, and I covered that in the last video. Again, you can look up that video, find it in our video archive because we covered a lot of them there. RTB just means return to base. All right? It's designed to be as minimal of a signal as possible. RTB, return to base. Now, we like our little single letter things. So in this case, you're only having to send 3 letters because remember, we go all the way back. Green Berets will go all the way back to using Morse code and using digital sending bursts. And a burst sends a lot faster, but a 3-letter burst sends a lot quicker than a 20-letter burst. So RTB, we are returning to base. Returning to base. I got another R for you, ruck up. Ruck is short for rucksack, right? Those backpacks that we wear. So if the squad leader gets off the radio and it's time to move, he'll say, all right, ruck up, we're out of here. Put on your rucksacks, we're getting ready to leave. Now, ruck up is kind of became slang for, you're there and, somebody's running his mouth and you look at him and you go, all right, dude, ruck up. Come on, step up to the plate. You want to do this, ruck up. Or you'll hear the term cowboy up. A lot of your rednecks will say, all right, cowboy up, let's see what you got. But military guys, they look you deep in the eye and they say, ruck up. They're like, okay, bring it on. You get yourself in the best condition possible and you better pack a lunch because we're not backing down from anything. Ruck up. All right, I got another one for you called a snafu. Snafu, what would snafu be? Snafu. Snafu is situation normal, all f***ed up. All right, the military started using it basically saying, yeah, things aren't getting any better. The commander comes and gives you another mission and you just look over at your buddies and go snafu. Situation normal, all f***ed up still. That kind of goes hand in hand with FUBAR, which is f***ed up beyond all recognition. They used FUBAR, became popular with civilians in the movie Saving Private Ryan, but FUBAR wasn't really used in the military for me personally, but we use snafu all the time. If things were screwed up, you're in a bad unit, whatever, and it's the same old shit. Snafu, situation normal, all f***ed up. All right, guys, we're going to break real quick one last time before we wrap this thing up. YouTube has an important commercial for you. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that commercial. So they come over the radio and they say, Tango Mike. All right, they talk, blah, 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 blah. They finish it up with Tango Mike. You should say over and out. You're done talking, you say, hey, you, this is me, over. Or the way you properly talk is when you say anything, right? Charlie 01, this is Charlie 03. What is your condition? Over. You're ending it, let them know that you're done talking, and then they'll come back, Charlie 03. This is Charlie 01. We are RTB at this time, over. They're letting me know they're done talking, and then I'll keep back. Roger that, this Charlie 03, out. When I say out, it means the conversation's over with. Right? We understand we really don't do that in the military anymore. We don't. Special ops units are very informal. We don't say over and out a lot. From time to time, when you get done talking, you'll hear somebody say Tango Mike. And what he is saying is he's saying thank you or thank you very much. Could he say, hey man, we're heading back, we'll be back inside the wire, 20 minutes, say thank you very much. You could say that, but instead they say Tango Mike. It's kind of them trying to be cool. The officers do it on the radios a lot. One of you actually mentioned it in the comment section underneath the radio. I have heard it on the radio, them wrapping it up with Tango Mike. Actually, Marines do it more than the Army guys. But yeah, I have heard it. Another abbreviation here in the military. One more for you in the T's is TOT, time on target. This is kind of an important one because, for example, my sniper's up on the mountain. I need to know what time the assault force is going to hit the target because I need to know if I'm 2 kilometers back up on that mountain, up on a mountain 2 kilometers away, watching the target with the spotting scope. I've already sent all my pictures of the target. via SATCOM radio, the assault forces plan the mission, they're getting ready to come in. I need to know what time the assaulters are going to hit. I need to know what their time on target is. What is the TOT? TOT for the mission, 02:21 in the morning. All right, that tells me I've got until 02:20 to basically break down my hide site at sundown, come all the way down off the mountain, and move close enough to the target so that I can give sniper support of the assault force coming in. All right, that lets me know. Another one where you would use TOT is, let's say you got a JTAC with you, that Joint Air Control Personnel. He's calling in your bombs. He's got the Air Force bringing bombs in. You understand some of those bombs, a B-52 hanging up there over 40,000 feet, it takes a long time for those bombs to get there. So they'll tell you, hey, time of target is 30 seconds. There's no reason for you to get down right now, because if you're really close to those bad guys, if you duck right now, that's 30 seconds of bad guys plinking at you where you're not returning fire. So that JTAC will say, hey, TOT 30 seconds. All right, roger that, I'm still in the fight. Now he's already hunkered down because he's an Air Force guy, he's sucking on his thumb, but he is watching that clock. When he's 5 seconds out, 10 seconds out, he's gonna let you know, hey, time on target, 5 seconds inbound. And then you guys get your heads down, because you don't want to have your head sticking up when that 2,000-pound bomb goes off. There's a lot of shrapnel flying everywhere. I mean, a lot of shrapnel. You don't want that. All right, last one. Let's do a W. I don't have any Z's, guys, sorry. Last one is WMD, stands for Weapon of Mass Destruction. All right, that can be a chemical weapon, right? You say weapon of mass destruction, everybody thinks like, well, the chemical weapons that Saddam had back in the Iraqi war. It can be nuclear weapons, but more importantly, it can be biological weapons also. So when they say, hey, we are worried about a WMD attack, you understand, somebody drops a nuke on your house, all you know is you've got the remote in your hand, you're flipping the TV, and the next thing you know, you're sitting there on the couch and St. Peter's over here and Jesus is over here going, yep, you didn't see that coming. All right, you're not going to feel a thing, right? A chemical attack, they slime your house, yeah, you're kind of screwed. Biological attacks are just evil stuff, guys. They really are. Anthrax, COVID is a chemical weapon, but there are a lot, I mean, not chemical, it's a biological weapon, and they've been used before, they will be used again. Same with chemical weapons. Countries that can't afford nuclear weapons, they more likely than not are deep research in biological and chemical weapons. The Japanese were deep into biological and chemical weapons in World War II. And so were we. The U.S. Was some of the most guilty people for all of these. We have since dialed a lot of that stuff back. We still have nuclear weapons. We've said we won't use chemical or biological anymore. We still keep the biological research so that we can use it to fight against weapons that have been used against our military. And we literally have got so much chemical weapons stockpiles that they have to be incinerated to destroy them. And those incinerators run around the clock, and it'll still be years before they're all gone. So anyways, weapons of mass destruction. That's my blushing bride. Time to wrap this puppy up. What do you say? I will answer my wife here in a minute. But for you guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, or there are other acronyms you want to see us do, put the comments down in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And you guys know the deal. Y'all take care and shoot straight. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.